Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Hope you all had an amazing Valentine's Day. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine Tuesday. My name is Nikki. My pronouns are she, her, we. I'm with Youth Empowerment. I'm here with Arthur Soriano, and we have an amazing guest speaker today, Mr. Juan Flores. Before we get started, I want to start us out with a quote, just something for us to reflect on, something for us to think about, and definitely honor today. The quote is, I have learned that success is to be measured, not so much by the position that one reached in life, but as by the obstacles which he has had to overcome while trying to succeed. And that's by Booker T. Washington. And so as we get in depth with our conversation today, and we talk about people that have been system impacted, formerly incarcerated, we think of all of the obstacles that we've gone through, but ultimately where those obstacles take us, right? And how we take charge with that. And so we want to thank you for being present today. We hope that you have an amazing, amazing experience with us. And thank you for joining us. And I will pass it on to Arthur.
Uh, Thank you, Nikki. And today is just an honor and a privilege to be here today. Before we started this webinar, we were just, conversating, having some discussions, and a thought came to my head. And that thought was that individuals, my generation that I grew up with, my same age, been to juvenile incarceration, adult, similar stories, but there's some individuals that just were able to break them chains earlier than others, right? And so um, Juan Juan is a great example of paving the grave way longer than I have as far as his transformation and um, starting a family, starting his process. I remember I used to be in prison thinking, man, how Juan do it? Right? How this individual do it? Like, because these are the individuals that I know. So they're the individuals that I could relate to, right? Like I'll be in there, I'll hear little stories, one kid, two kids, three kids, creating a foundation, right? And so that's something that I wanted. That's something that I wanted to be a part of, that and like something that I desired. And even though I had several um, challenges, the power of just modeling and not really connecting, right? Like not just modeling that and just being a great example. It goes a long way. It goes a long way, and it has had a great influence in my life. And Juan is just one in specific that he's one of them individuals. And so we grew up in the same neighborhood, right there in East San Diego, same clique, rascals, same traumas, similars. I remember um, I remember staying at his house. I remember I AWOL'd from Campo back in the day. I forget what year, and that home in Del Sol, the garage. He had the garage right there hooked up, and I remember being there for a little bit, and just my in and out process started. He has this process, so we want to take you through a journey of trauma, healing, resilience, and so really honored that we're here today with Juan. So tell us a little bit about your history, Juan.
Arthur, Nikki, the honor is mine to just join on your guys' platform. It feels like a big embrace of being welcome. Thank you guys. I think what you guys are doing is radical. I think it's going above the status quo. Youth empowerment is something that I see is transcending into and radically changing lives, both youth as well as adults. So this little opportunity I receive as a great honor. Thank you. A little bit about my life, and if I can talk just without any filters, just let me know. If it gets too much, let me know as well. The only story I have is the one I came through. One thing is my life from a very young age till realizing what I was doing. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't, this was not an oppression that was put on me. It was something that I welcomed. It was something that I loved doing. Gangs, violence, drug abuse, drug dealing, hustling. Those are things that was brought to me, introduced to me at a very, very young age. I didn't learn how to sell drugs or do drugs in the streets. I learned that at home. The first person I ever see overdose was my dad on heroin. First person I ever seen doing a line was my dad. First person I held a band around their arm was my aunt in our room to shoot up. These is my life. That was what I was raised in the neighborhood. Coming out of that, that was that was just part of growing up. It was no big deal. It wasn't a big trauma. It wasn't nothing like that. I look back at it now, I was thinking, how come nobody called CPS? How come nobody did this? But that was just the neighborhood we were at. Everybody did it. It was common. And the life that I chose was that was the recipe that I think was gonna take me. And I see examples of family structure today, and those examples is you see parents on the walls of their living rooms of their accomplishments of graduating from high school, college. Those examples in my house I seen with pictures of my dad in prison, homeboys and brothers, aunts, uncles. Those were all my examples, and that's just what I seen. It wasn't I was trying to be something. It was just what I was born into, I think you can say. And carrying that on from a very young age. I mean, at the age of 9, I think I started running the streets and just following the path of my brothers, uncles. My parents, they got divorced. I think I was 7 at that age. I started getting into trouble and just doing everything that was in my neighborhood, everything that was on my block. It was just a recipe for disaster, I guess. It was no big deal. Now that I see it as, chaos was our normal. What society would look at as chaotic, that was my peace. I wasn't at peace unless I was doing violence, doing something chaotic, involved in it, because it was just something that was a part of. Quick example of just the kind of childhood that I was introduced to is I think I started selling drugs at the age of 9 years old, selling Sherm. And that actually 9, 10 years old, but at that age is, I knew immediately that I needed to pack a gun. I got myself a 38 and was selling Sherm on the streets, selling to adults, selling to anybody and everybody. And the type of example of a parent that I had, and this is nothing against them, but this is just to share, is it's just to try to show how much I can relate to those growing up in these situations. And that is, I remember my dad finding the gun in the drawer, and he had sat me down, and I felt good about my dad sitting me down because, the examples and what I seen on television, the Cosby Show, things like that, a father would sit down with their kids, train them how to maybe do mechanics, how to do landscaping, how to do read, write. Well, the example that my dad did, he sat me down, he says, son, he says, I see you got a gun in your drawer. He says, I want to tell you something. If you ever shoot it, make sure you look at the person in the eye when you shoot it. Those are the examples that I got as a kid growing up. My brother doing the same thing, and we were part of it. And of course, he was a heroin addict at that time, so he took the gun. He says, I got to take it for some business, and then took off. But I was so proud that my dad spent the time to talk to me. Unfortunately, it was about something so evil, so chaotic, so wrong. So I grew up with that, understanding it. Violence, people dying, seeing people killed. That was a normal. It was no biggie. From the age of, I believe it was 11 till 19 years old, I was in and out of incarceration, juvenile halls, camps, CYA. I think the longest I did was actually when you were staying with me in the garage in Del Sol. The longest I was out for about 8 months in between those years. So I'll get out, do a violation, get out, do another crime. And doing time was not a big thing. That was like another validation for your qualifications for street credibility. So like you would get an award for doing a good thing in class, in school. That was our award. And I seen it being celebrated. We would get out and there'll be big parties for us. There'll be big recognition. So that kind of that kind of psychology to a little kid did nothing but encourage more gang banging, more crimes, more violence, and something that I took a lot of love and compassion and pride in doing. I have a complex, insecurity, I guess, when I'm asked to share my testimony to youth, because when I would hear other people's testimonies and when they would share their life stories with me, back in my mind, it says, I don't care. You know, I thought, well, if you can get away with it, I'll get away with it as well. It didn't have an impact on me. But I think Nikki said something last week is don't hold back or dropping those seeds, because those seeds is what start to flourish and it start to grow in its time. And that, you know, if you were to pick me up and take me out of that life and put me into a nice neighborhood, suburbs, let's say La Jolla or something like that, give me all the luxuries of life, all the opportunities of life, I would reject it and go right back to my neighborhood, because that's what I love. That's who I thought my identity was. That's who I believe who I was. It was in my family. It was all around me. And it was something that I went after. I didn't, you know, somebody can look at it and think it was a bad situation. I didn't think it as a bad situation. I didn't think it as wrong, as you know, chaotic and oppressed or depressed. And so when I share a testimony, you know, a testimony to me is like somebody who recovered from cancer, something that was put on them and they didn't want it, but it was put on them and they recovered from it. To me, that's what a testimony is. When I share mine, I wanted that life. I wanted it wholeheartedly. Uh, Dying for it meant nothing to me. Doing time for it, that was nothing. Um, my dad was in and out. My uncles were in and out. My brother, he just got out of doing a life sentence. Drug, violence, organized crime was all around me. From the states on the other side of the border, it was Mexican mafia. My mom's side, her family side was the cartels. So that kind of lifestyle, it was part of what I wanted. Telling me otherwise, I would just ignore it until you had said something about, you know, explain how we took the chains off. The chains, I couldn't take those chains off. I was bound in them. And growing up in it and seeing it all around me, it was just an example of what I wanted to be. The fear of getting incarcerated, because there is fear in it. It was a kind of fear that I can explain as seeing those before me and wanted to be successful in committing crimes as they were. So I was fearful that I wouldn't do as much as them or more, like my brothers, like my dad, like my uncles. So when I would get locked up, you know, you feel a fear. Everybody does. I don't care how bad you say you are. You're going to fear that fear. And I felt it. But the fear that wrapped around my neck was not being as good as a criminal as they were. And I seen that as you know, that was my life. That was my pursuit. Changing it after a while. And I can say that what I bring that up because I didn't ever stop loving my neighborhood. I never stopped loving my homeboys, my homegirls. Till this day, I haven't stopped. The only thing is what changed my life is I started loving something more. And I didn't stop loving it less, the neighborhood. I just started loving God and my family more. Something brought into light is that's what happened. Is changing it from that till now.
Wow. Wow, Juan. And like, you know, there's this quote of pursuit to happiness, but it was a pursuit to our realities back in our childhood, right? And so everything that you're mentioning is system-induced trauma, complex trauma, chronic trauma, vicarious trauma, community trauma, the violence, the drug addiction, the fatherless homes, the poverty-stricken communities, that whole dynamic, right? And we can't comprehend that as we're kids, the environment, that it's just a normal for us. So And no, I can definitely relate into what you're speaking on. And gangbanging was a way of life. Like there was nothing that was gonna get in our way. Like this is our gangbanging. This is how we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna roll. Ain't nobody gonna step in our way. And if you step in our way, then we're gonna remove you out that way. So everything that you explained is like you're right. Where was a system to protect us? Where was rehabilitation? Where were the resources? Because in this particular community in East San Diego, um, the police station was 10 miles away, right? And 10 miles
Other
away
neighborhood. Yeah.
from the neighborhood, it wasn't right there on Fairmount.
Mm.
There was no safety. No one felt safe. Youth, individuals, family, none of that. So we were running amok out there. I remember just being at quick corner liquor stores, Zayla Parks, malls, like 30, 40 dead ends, like just 30, 60 of us at a time, just running amok, just doing as we pleased. And we were doing that because all these different traumas that we were being affected by, this is where our way of releasing that. So as you're speaking your narrative, Juan, like I'm just putting everything into relation because we grew up together and just identifying that, and now just being in a safe space. And we're in a safe space right now, just sharing these narratives in hopes that uh, people warm up to this and use this as motivation, as transformation for their own lifestyle. Your last incarceration, where was your last incarceration? Your last time being in, and how was that process? And where did you go from there?
I got locked up the last time. I think I was 16. Went to YA, experienced all the local county areas that you can experience. So they finally sent me to YA for strong arm robbery. Was there for 4 years. Um, my sons are older now. I have 4 boys, and they're older now. They're grown men now, and they go on the internet. They see what's out there. They see how people who are locked up or are and how they title different stuff. They titled CYA as gladiator school and things like that. And I guess there's a certain amount of truth to it, but to me, it was just a larger scale what I was already raised in. It wasn't nothing really new. It was a broader area because now I'm dealing with all California, but the rules, the different politics, incarceration politics, I was already used to that stuff. Um, my goal was to follow the steps of my brother. My brother at that time was doing life in prison for a murder. And it was no sweat to go through that time and accomplish the goal, and that was to be beside him. The closest thing I had to a father figure was my brother. When both parents were on dope, doing drugs, we would sometimes be starving at nighttime as little kids because they would choose, to do some dope rather than feed their kids. We were raised on welfare and the whole bit. My brother would go out and go steal from the local liquor store or something and bring it back, and we eat. The stuff like that to me was an example. The neighborhood that we grew up, psychologically, what it did to us was I see now was a very big controlling tool. Um, so much so, I remember I think I was 11 years old, and I was walking up to the dead end. You know where that's at. And a carload of another neighborhood jumped out, was gonna jump me, and behind me there was our whole entire neighborhood. And so, make a quick long story short is they got in the car, they took off, but one of the big homies, he says, you know what, let's load up. And we loaded up. He grabbed his semi-automatic, and we went to go do a drive-by. Now I was only 11 years old, and when the big homie did that, for me, that implanted so much loyalty to my neighborhood, so much bond to want to fulfill and show my gratitude, which was to return that same type of retaliation on behalf of my neighborhood. And, I carried it everywhere. We have the neighborhood on our arms, on our backs. it was 100%. My life has always been 100%. Whatever I get myself into, it's going to do it 100%. That's all I know. So my last incarceration was in CYA. I got out, and I had no desire to ever go back again. I got tired of it. Very young age, I said, I'm just tired of this. And I always knew, you always hear, never say you're ever going to come back, because you're going to end up coming back. And I always knew that, but I said it anyways. I said, I'm not going to come back. I don't care if I have to kill myself, if I have to die. I'm just tired of this life. I'm tired of being busted. And being busted was glamorized. We glamorized being decimated. We glamorized being being treated inhumane. I see that as a tool, as a weapon now, as well as back then is. We would call ourselves that. I'm a 2-time loser. I'm a 3-time loser. We imparted these words into us, and we took it with pride instead of embarrassment or shame. Bending down to be frisked by a guard, and coughing every single time you walked in and out of a door. These are inhumane things that we weren't created for. And understanding that now is a big not just enlightenment, but revelation of understanding. I see today that the kids, when we were growing up, I didn't get into what I got into because of movies. This is before movies like American Me, Colors, Boys in the Hood came out. Before it was all glamorized, we were already involved in it. Now you have that, and it's glamorizing this lifestyle. And you have music that pulls us youth into that. And this is what I believe we are fighting against. And I told my sons before as well, I said, you ever get busted, don't expect me to visit you. Don't expect me to give you some storage, some money to put on your books. I said, you did the crime, you're gonna do the time. And I think that's what started changing my life, is looking at how to be responsible, how to be accountable. And that's what I want to impart to my kids, to my staff, to anybody who I can get a hold of, is showing them how to be responsible, how to stand on your own 2 feet. Growing up in the neighborhood, it was a big, I think, encouragement to know that you have an entire neighborhood behind your back. If you get into any kind of trouble, you have somebody to back you up. And I think I was in YA when I learned, don't look for nobody to back you up. Stand on your own 2 feet. Don't get into anything that you can't handle by yourself. Don't expect anybody to be there. And so now what I encourage to youth, what I encourage to people getting in that lifestyle, get into it. You're going to get into it. You're going to find that you're going to be the only one standing by yourself. It's nothing glamorous. If you were raised like I was raised, with the recipe for disaster, and your entire family was involved in it, understand one thing is you're going to be standing alone when you get in sentence. There's nobody going to be standing right next to you. When you're doing time by yourself. I don't care how many homeboys are there. They're in their own cells down the road. You are the one only going to be standing on your own 2 feet. And I think that is what we are facing today as a generation. It's a culture that we are up against, is glamorizes this stuff. It puts it in a rap song of something to be glamorous, to be a thug, instead of facing what it is. And I encourage to look, if you are going to do it, look to stand on your own 2 feet and do it. Don't look for anybody to back you up. These are the oracles of being hard, of being courageous, of doing it because you're going to do it by yourself. Now, today, I've taken that, and I don't look for anybody to accommodate me. My bills are my bills. My responsibilities are my responsibilities. And that's, I believe, is a big wake up to the society that we were raised in, because it was opposite. I grew up believing I was a victim, believing, I was oppressed, depressed, believing I should rely on the state to take care of me. Growing up in welfare society, always dependent on somebody else. I remember at a very young age, my mom would send us down to across the street, ask for some eggs, ask the neighbor for some money because we need it. That was taught to me at a very young age. And so when I got out of YA, I went through some transformations. I tried to get into college. try to do that, but I couldn't afford it. The first person who got me a job is in the picture right behind you, Termite, Robert. was he got me a job at McDonald's. That was my first job ever.
Was it that his first job too?
No, I think he was working there, so he got me the job.
Okay.
And I just got out of YA, and I was trying to do it. As far as being institutionalized, I remember the very first thing I did when I got out. I went to 7-Eleven. It was across the street, and I stood at the glass door, just stood there looking through the glass door, looking at the guy in the counter, behind the counter. He was looking at me, I was looking at him, and he turned away, and I'm just looking at him like, what are you doing? I was waiting for him to buzz the door because I'm so used to getting the door buzzed. Every door you walk in and out of when you're locked up. And so the most uncomfortable thing I felt when I walked in, I realized, okay, I'm not locked up. I walked in 7-Eleven, and it felt very uncomfortable because he was not looking at me. He wasn't, checking me out. I was free. That was very uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
It was hard for me to walk down the street without contraband in my pocket, without a weapon or drugs on me. And to see a cop just drive by and me not have to run, that was very, very foreign to me. I say that because the first job I got at McDonald's, I think I worked there for a month, and the manager, he didn't snap at me. He just gave me a forceful direction to take out the trash. You better take out the trash, hurry up, because we got this stuff to do. And I snapped. I said, don't you ever talk to me like that. I didn't know how to communicate. This wasn't, somebody talks to you like that, then it was green light. It was all or nothing. These are just the culture that I was raised in. And so I couldn't maintain a job, try to do everything I could to do what society said was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
All of us have our levels of success. And I think those hearing this that are just getting out, your level of success may be just to stay out. And I know what that feels like. I know that burden because you have no clue of how to barely walk a street without, breaking the law of not waiting for the light to turn on, let alone filling out an application, how to maintain on the etiquettes of a job interview, what to wear, what to say, how to say it. We walk in we walk out of a structure like prison or incarceration, but our minds are still there. So how do we get our minds free? How do we get that imparted into us? And one of the biggest ways that happened to me is I had a transformation. I experienced God. I seen God. I was with a Tech 9 semi-automatic because there was the managers, they were from Iraq, and they bought the hotel that my parents were managing. My parents finally got back together when I got out, just for a little while, but they were back together, still doing drugs and everything. And they were managing a hotel in Chula Vista. And the new owners, they were very nice at first, but when they bought the hotel, they barely speak English. They were from Iraq, so they didn't know the protocols of giving somebody a 30-day notice. They wanted my parents out that day. They said, get out, demanding them. And, I was willing to die for my neighborhood, kill for my neighborhood. And somebody was doing something to my parents. I said, oh, no, we're not going to have that. I called up one of the homeboys here. I was trying to go to college, trying to do right. And I said, none of this is working, and nobody, I'd be damned if somebody's going to do something to my parents. They threw gasoline on my mom. They were trying to forcefully take them out of there. And I called up one of the homeboys for a Tech 9. He gave it to me, and I was loading up in the hotel room upstairs. And that's when I had an experience with God. And I heard his audible voice. I felt his presence. I can go into a full session of just explaining that experience, but I don't want to take it away. But that's what radically changed my life. That's what I didn't believe in God.
What that feel like? What that feel like, Juan? Like that feeling of that presence.
If I can explain the best way is I've never experienced love like I experienced love that day. Love that is unimaginable. Love where I will see strangers and just want to hug them. I was radically changed, and I experienced this love, this void. I mean, I've really actually felt free. I mean, I was already out, and I felt what freedom felt like. The, I can barely explain it. It was like I would look at nature, I would look at plants, I would look at trees, and they would look back at me in this awe, in this love. And I felt so. I never cried. It was hard for me to cry. My heart was so hard. I remember going to funerals of very close homeboys and family, and I couldn't cry, and I felt strange about it. I didn't know why. It was because my heart was so hard, and that day I couldn't stop crying. Um, I didn't want to hurt these people anymore. I didn't want to hurt anybody no more. And there was some promises given to me by God, by this experience, and that was if I was to serve Him, He'll save my whole family.
Wow.
And I took Him up on that.
Wow.
I said, all right, let's do it. So that was my experience with God. That was my experience, and all I wanted to do was know more about it. And it was a radical change. What I felt was just love. I couldn't sleep. It was just so much. And the things I had to unlearn everything. It wasn't me trying to learn something new. I had to unlearn what I already knew my whole life.
Yeah.
And that was the experience. And it was radical. And to make it short, that promise happened 24 years ago. And my dad, he was one of the hardest men you can think of. He's now saved, born again, drug-free.
Wow.
He's a new person. My mom, my sisters, my brother just got out. The hardest person I ever knew was my brother. When I say hard, I mean evil.
And he just did a whole life term. This is the brother you were talking about. I think he's been out just less than a year, around a year. How do you feel about that? How's that make you feel?
He's how I make me feel is that promise that was given to me 24 years ago is coming to pass. When I even gave up on that promise, I said, there's no way, this is impossible. He got a life sentence. Judge says he'll never get out. Not only that, but he caught more crimes when he was busted. More crimes that gave him another life sentence. He was involved just neck deep in the Mexican mafia, a made guy. When I say evil, that's what I mean, the epitome of evil. And to see him change is a miracle. That's all I can say, is just a miracle. Is that promise that was given to me. And I stood on that promise. I didn't waver from it. And what changed my life, Arthur, is I didn't know how to be normal. I didn't know how to be etiquette or accommodating. I didn't know how to sit in society or just to sit at a dining table with normal and having normal conversations. That was foreign to me. I didn't know how to do that. So I thought it was starting to become, I started to go to church because that's what they said, to go to church. But it was very soon after where I started getting bored. I said, I don't know how to do this stuff. I have no idea how to be calm and dress different, talk different. The same slang words came out of my mouth. And I had an experience where it felt like God saying, well, don't change. Do the exact same thing you were doing, but now do it for me. So that's what I encourage is we have this culture, this way of doing stuff. And I say, put that same energy that you're doing for evil and do it for good. The same. So I had to tell myself the depth of sin that I was in, the depth of crime that I was in, is I'm going to go that same deep into the things of doing right, into the things of doing something better. And so I heard the man last week say his rides on the trolley, and I know that. I would ride on the trolley, and I thought, because I lived in Chula Vista with my wife, we got married, and she lived in Chula Vista, and my job was in East San Diego, so I had to take the trolley, the buses. And I would always say, if I was willing to do this for my neighborhood, why wouldn't I go and do this for myself or for my family? And that's the exact same thing I say today, is when because life is going to hit you hard. more than doing time, more than the experience that we put ourselves in. Life itself will hit you. But when it does, is I have that same mentality is if I was willing to do it for this 100%, why now wouldn't I put that same energy, not stop it, but put that same energy into pursuing this thing of being successful, of being a contribution to society, doing this with the same resilience, the same passion, the same commitment, because it was 100% in the streets. And if I can do that for the streets, why not can I do this for my family, for those around me, for helping somebody else?
And,
It's
and,
already
and
you're already there. You've already accomplished it. You've already went through hell. So if you're willing, you already know your abilities and capabilities. So if you can do that for that lifestyle and you really want to change, then go 100% into it. And don't change anything, just switch it.
just switch it,
Switch it for something good.
and
That's
it's
it.
transferable skill. You know, Juan talked about, you know, slanging dope, hustling, being in an environment where there was a lot of tension, strain, conflict, right? Out of conflict comes growth. So if you're able to identify it and transfer it into something, your pain into beauty, your healing to resilience, right? And so, Juan, that's an amazing story. Where are you at now? You mentioned a wife. How many kids do you have? What's your line of work? What do you do?
So my wife is, I married her. She's completely opposite of me. Um, we've been married for 24 years. And I wish I can give you the recipe for being married that long. I don't know if there is one because we are completely different opposites. She grew up in the suburbs of Chula Vista. And I met her when she was going to college. That's when I said, when I got out, and I seen her there, and we've been married. We got 4 boys. She had a son before before we got married, so I raised him, helped raise him, received him as my own, and then we had 3 other boys of my own. So during that time, I did get a job. I started learning. My dad was a painter, so I took up painting, did that for a while. I thought my whole life I'll be a painter until I started doing that and discovered other qualities in me. And I went after that, was in construction with the new building industry, built on that. One thing is I tell my sons now, because my son asked me, he said, how do you ask for a raise? You know, I'm doing everything I could. How you can ask for a raise? And I told him, don't. I never asked for a raise. I said, just outwork everybody. Show up at least 10 to 15 minutes early and stay at least 10 to 15 minutes late after everybody's already gone. And while you're there, do your absolute best. If so, I did that. I applied that. Again, I'm going back to, if I was willing to do this for the streets, why wouldn't I want to be willing to do this for my own family? My anchor, my focus was my children and my family. And, you know, things would run into conflicts with contractors, with even managers, bosses, and everything that always kept me from reacting to those situations. Because again, I didn't know how to conduct myself, how to have a civil conversation in the midst of conflict, when tensions get high on jobs and stuff like that, and blaming others is always kept my family. I said, okay, I can't swing on this guy because, you know, that's going to affect my family. And so what I learned, and it was always through example, it was always through watching somebody else. I say school, I didn't fail school, school failed me. It's nothing against school, nothing against education, but the way the system is ran is you're giving a lesson first and then a test, and how you do on that test determines your qualifications. Well, life isn't that way. Life will give you a test and you learn the lesson from it. And so I started learning through example. The way I learn is through watching. And I learned that just recently. I'm very, very slow, or I pay no attention to courses or studies. It's just the way our brains are wired, that's all. And so I picked up on it. I would get a job around some of the homeboys, and one of them, He would outwork everybody. And I looked at that and I said, well, that's the way I want to do work. And that method got me promotion after promotion, got me raises after raises of just doing my best while I was at work. Honoring. If I can teach my children one thing, if I can teach anybody one thing, just one thing, it's honor. Honor. It's and it's a culture shock because that's not what's popular. Honor to me is when everybody's talking bad about the boss, stay silent or just walk away. People will talk bad about the boss, and I will say, you know what, don't talk like that around me. Talk about it somewhere else, because I was there to serve that person, and that's exactly what I wanted to do is serve them not like they lorded over me or anything. Serve them like they were. My goal, my focus was to provide for my family, so I'm going to serve this individual because they're providing for my family. And so I took that role of honor and applied it. I didn't allow gossip to be around me. Didn't allow, if I spent $1 to you and you gave me back the change and it wasn't sufficient, I'll give it back to you. These are things that, I was not used to. So speaking honoring everybody. I don't care about your beliefs. I don't care about your political views. I don't care about your religion. Honor you regardless. And this is what I believe promoted me and got me through different areas. Now I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur. I own a business for going on 6 years, actually over 6 years with a partner. And we're now in 3 different counties: Riverside County, San Diego County, and Imperial Valley. We're being asked right now to go into Yuma, Arizona. Through that time, we accumulated over $9 million. And we're building each area up. We have over 30 employees. And so my purpose, my goal,
that's amazing.
Is to impart that into them as well. Me and my partners, we never took out a profit. We put it back into the company and give it back to our employees with raises, with bonuses. Again, my mission is to restore and to build up. A lot of these men and women, some of them are legal immigrants, so we're helping them with their families who still live across the border to become legal as well. We're helping them during this crisis stay employed. Some of them are getting houses, some of them are getting vehicles. Some of them, we're doing that to give back to them. And my passion, my life goal is that building up different businesses, different avenues for the community, for those who are close to us. My business is restoration, so not emotionally or physically, but if you were to have a leak in your house or fire damage, we come and restore it. So restoring lives, restoring homes, restoring property, and restoration is my passion. To do that and make a business out of what I already have a passion for. That's what I encourage of. And I'm now sitting on the executive boards of different boards around the country. I sit with dinners with CEOs, with billionaires. Matter of fact, what started our business was a billionaire who says, I'm intrigued by your passion, how you're just a hard worker and you just go after it. And I want to invest into it. This is all I say that not to brag or anything, but it's to shed light that, as well as encouraging. The highest grade I've ever completed was the 6th grade. My education is a 6th grade education, and yet I'm getting asked of how consultants from lawyers, from different executives, from not just this industry and other industries, I could communicate on their level. And to me, that's amazing.
Wow.
And when before becoming a business owner, I went up through the ranks as just a laborer, working my way all the way up into the executive level of the building industry in construction, and worked my way all the way up through just promotion, just through not trying to ask for a raise. They just gave it. And they seen the hard work, like you said, the resilience, and kept on getting raises after raises. And here I am sitting in the boardroom with a institution mentality, with a sixth grade education, talking to executives who have master's degrees and sometimes doctor's degrees. And we're talking the same level so much. I started now flying with them, and they're executive jets. And we'll go to conferences and training. And then, hey, you want to stop in San Francisco to eat a $500 meal? You know, these are my sixth grade education. And that's why I say what got me to those areas was honoring who was in front of me, honoring the position I was in, even though it wasn't what I seen everybody else doing at the time as a laborer. I seen others with nice cars and everything, but my purpose was to provide and protect my family. And then while working, I was asked to, again, I didn't put in any money. My other partner put in, I don't know, 20,000 to start the business. I said, I don't have any money. I don't, got that. He said, what I just need from you is sweat equity, because you already know this. You already know the system. You're a top performer. And because your connections, we need that. And I say that in encouragement to those who are wondering about their children, who are live that lifestyle that I came out of. The impossibility is endless. Your potential is endless. What you have inside of you is greater than we can imagine. I'm looking at you right now, Arthur, and I still remember us getting high in my garage and running the streets and doing the crazy stuff we were doing, and yet you're sitting here and in connections with other major contributors to society, both law enforcement, both economically, as well as spiritually, as well as, Niki, I don't know your background too much, but I hear a little bit of where you came from and what you've been through. And that there is the greatness that is inside of us. And I think it was an attack since we were little kids that try to stop those potentials from coming out. It's there. All you got to do is have somebody to bring it out. Again, of talking to people on the trolley or on the buses, like you said last week, Niki, those are seeds we plant into them, just seeds. There's a story about a man that grew up in the hills, in the farming hills of Pennsylvania, and his name is David Wilkerson. And he went out to the streets of New York City, and his shoes were taken, they robbed him. He lived in the car, they beat him. But he reached one person, just one. His name was Nicky Cruz. He was a Satanist, a gangbanger from Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And that one person started a ministry called Teen Challenge, who affects millions of people internationally, just that one person. And out of that ministry came another man named Sonny Arganzoni, who started another ministry called Victory Hour, which is also internationally, just that one seed, that one person. I believe that's what you guys are doing, is empowering just that one person, even if it is just that one, can radically, dramatically change society, lives, families' lives for the good, for the better. That's what I see is what's going on with you guys.
Wow, thank you, Juan. Like dynamic, inspirational, transformational, and we know each other, but today we got into like details that I didn't know, right? That inspire me, give me hope, give me more energy and healing, and just thank you for being a great example, at a early age, and thank you for starting your process early, because people watch, people pay attention, and being a role model goes a long way. So thank you for being here present, and we're going to let Niki share some words and then do our checkout.
Oh my God, I wanted to share words so long ago, but I definitely wanted to honor your space and just be mindful and be extremely present. So grateful that you have come. The one thing I want to touch back on, and just kind of summing everything up, is the thing that I just was able to see, recognize, value, and appreciate more than anything is your ability to be accountable. Right? A lot of times we go through life and we find justifications, or we find reasons to minimize, or we find excuses to make for whatever it might be that's as a result of our behaviors, and I think a lot of times, we step away from that, and the fact that you massively took on a coat that really in all actuality should be half shifted or a midriff, but you decided you were going to sew on those extra layers and turn it into a trench coat and wear it all, no matter how heavy of a burden it may be, and no matter how much of it you really truly own truthfully, you still wanted to put that on. And I definitely want to honor you, and just say that it's so amazing, that how humbling and grateful it was to just be able to hear that coming from you. And touching back on when we started the conversation with you, you spoke so much about where we look in society, where things tend to go wrong, right? And how we end up cultivating a culture to where we accept as a norm, right? And everybody says there is no norm. Nothing's normal but a setting on a dryer, right? And that's ultimately all that normal is, right? Because everybody has so many different objectives and perspectives of what are subjective perspectives of what normal looks like. And I think the biggest thing, though, to be able to touch and identify on is that when we are growing up, and when we are in these households that ultimately create trauma, that have come from neglect, that have some type of substance abuse issues, that are ravishing, impoverished neighborhoods, we're still human beings that at that age are looking for love, belonging, and validation, period. And it could be the most negative or it could be the most positive. Who are we going to be? What are we going to contribute to that? How are we going to ignite that? And I think the biggest thing, like you said, Juan, touching back, your validation came from your father, him sitting you on that bed. That's where that came from. Same thing with your brother, getting the validation from your brother. And I only bring that up as a reminder because now sitting here today, and having this conversation, and everybody that's watching, and just as a reminder of how important validation is, because as a youth and not having any sense of belonging, struggling with your identity, and identity is key, right? Identity is key at those ages. What do we do with that identity? Who do I want to become? I'm going to become whoever it is that I get the most validation from. That's where it's going to come from. That's what I'm going to seek out. That's what's going to put me either in the streets or in my home, right? And I think with that being said, it's so important that we validate everybody that we come in contact, and we plant, like you said. Thank you for even paying attention to what I said last week. I greatly appreciate it. But planting those seeds, right? Because we have the power, we have the capability to nurture a community that needs healing. Whether we created that devastation or not, we're a part of a community that can create healing. And I think that is so beautiful about being able to talk about owning what we did, doing what we can do to make ourselves a better human being, and whatever those obstacles were and whatever those challenges might have been, and acknowledging what ultimately challenged my belief system. Like you said, I didn't know how to behave. I remember when I was going through my transformation, I didn't know who the heck that was, because my identity was so caught up in my actions and how I defined myself. A fighter, a packer, all of those different things, that's who I was. And I didn't want to lose that, because if I lost that, then who am I? Right? But it's about us being uncomfortable, or getting uncomfortable and stepping away from our norms, so we have the ability to experience what it looks like to be the greatest version of ourselves.
Yes.
And I love just, and I'm so grateful for the amazing man that you are, and for everything that you've been able to contribute. And just congratulations on all of your amazing success, for taking time. Like, you're a volunteer mentor for our folks, you know what I mean? And our folks are desperately needing of mentorship, and the fact that you've been able to just contribute your time from everything that you have going on, like, I just want to express gratitude to you for that. Absolutely. And so I was holding on to that for the whole time, just so you know. Like, I want to high five you, I want to kudos you, I want to say amen, preach, bro, all of that throughout the whole time you were talking. But I definitely just wanted to honor your space, and it was just so humbling to be in your space, and it was an honor, and I definitely appreciate and value everything, every fiber of your being. Thank you for being you and allowing God to transform you into the amazing human being and man that you are today. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. The honor is mine. Again, a great honor of your guys' passion and commitment, not for your own, but for others. And I believe that your vision, your passion is not to be famous, not to be popular, but just to be effective. And I see that. And it's very, very effective. And one thing we're speaking to the youth as well as speaking to the parents as well. And I believe that we're going through some tough times right now with the economy, with the pandemic. One thing I can say is that life, the way it molds us and creates us, is for a purpose, and that's for us to soar. That's for us to mount up as wings as eagles. And it may not look like it. We go through crushing, we go through different times in our life, but the most that I see, the most effective grape is the one that's been crushed the most. It helps us. It turns into wine, and it helps it can detox us. It can cleanse us. It can do all kinds of, and that's the crushing that we go through. And I believe that what we're going through today in the society is something that I've been through. And I say, keep holding on and keep pressing on, keep moving forward. If you have nobody else to encourage you, encourage yourself. Speak to yourself, and it'll flourish. It'll definitely come to pass.
You're muted, Arthur.
Okay, now, thank you, brother. Like you just spoke on a whole lot of knowledge. We didn't even have to ask you you just killed it, brother. And we just really appreciate you, and I love you. I love you as a homeboy, and that's words that we barely use in our day, right? Like we'll give ourselves an embrace, or right? We didn't know how to like express our feelings, but now today, I could say that and feel the warmth, right? And feel the joy. Yeah. So definitely, thank you for being here today, Nikki. Check out.
Yep, let's do. First of all, let's just thank you again, Mr. Juan, for blessing this world with your greatness, with your presence. Absolutely. We'll do a one-word checkout. I'm definitely feeling humbled. Arthur?
I feel peaceful.
Juan?
I feel honored and blessed.
Awesome. Thank
Amen.
you. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.